Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, 6 degrees of separated paper. Now you are the story. Sorry, your computer is not compatible with your desk. Why our tech support guy wasn't allowed to talk to customers anymore. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. 6 degrees of separated paper. This post was written instead of doing actual things. Apologies for the crappy title, but no apologies for lack of llamas in the story. Once upon a time, Toshiba made a very nice dot matrix printer called the P351. 24-count M24 pins of punchy tungsten points that enabled a huge variety of visual beauty on the printed page, but was mainly just used for underlining sometimes. There was a color-capable version to the P351C, but as this was the era of CGA and EGA video, no one in the offices knew what colors were yet and proceeded to just wear out the black section of the ribbon. The P351 was the pride of any office it graced for producing correspondence. And it had accessories too. The favorite one was the automatic sheet feeder for loading A4 paper when a job was sent, and loading a second sheet for the second page. I won't overwhelm you with the technical detail of what occurs when a third page is sent for printing from the document. In these golden days of 1990 or 91, one particular P351 resplendent with ASF was matched with a fully functioning 286 with WordPerfect 5.1, which for you youngsters out there was a word processor. Not one of these newfangled desktop publishing rigs with WYSIWYG functions, but rather, a column on the left that showed how many lines of text would be sent to the printer. 66 lines of text on your screen lined up with 66 lines of printed text on the paper. Line 67 would be the top line of the second page. Now we get to the tech support part. On this occasion, the customer reported the fault that a single-page document would, on occasion, print the last line of a page, e.g. line 66, as a single line at the top of a second page. I won't bore you with how long it took to see the fault, let alone how long it took to test. Suffice to say it was a painful process. And it didn't happen if you just created your own document with 1 to 66 listed down the page. Oh no, it had to be an actual letter full of words, line spaces and carriage returns slowly and noisily delivered to the A4 sheet of paper. You are probably thinking, well, it's obviously the automatic sheet feeder, and so did I until the replacement ASF did the same thing. Probably paper dust on the sensors you counter. There was not a speck in that device when I finished servicing and cleaning it. Even used the multimeter on the paper out switch to make sure it was seeing open/close reliably. Guess what? It was. The paper out switch was mounted in a way so that a length of thin steel poked through a window and was pushed by the paper surface when present to close the switch via a lever action. Well, that lever is bent, you say, to which I say it wasn't, and also ask you stop interrupting. Ideally, the lever/thin pokey steel piece meets the surface of the paper perpendicular. There is only one screw mount, so it's possible for the whole switch to pivot on the screw and be at something other than a right angle. But it pokes through a window, so the angle is restricted by the presence of the edge of the hole. By being on an angle, even a slight one changes the distance ever so slightly of the end of the lever, so the lower edge of the paper is being detected fractionally before it would if the lever was perpendicular. Adjust the switch so it's straight. Next story, you rudely interject. That's half of the story. Keep reading this one. This customer had just received 150 reams of letterhead paper from a cheaper overseas supplier. A4 paper is 297 mm tall, or 11 3/4. This new paper was both inconsistently milled/cut for the length, but also had tiny variations in the edge too, so it was not perfectly straight. The printer was in spec, but the paper was not. The extra page with a single line of text did still happen, but not as often as it did before the switch was aligned. And Loctite was required to make sure it didn't move. But the issue remained as long as they continued using that paper. Now you are the story. Prologue. Back in the 90s, I had a small consulting group that fixed computers, created networks, etc. What a client called me saying they haven't been able to print since Friday. I run over, ask them to print something, can I hear anything, and check the cable from the PC to the printer. All is fine there. Then I look at the front of the HP printer, HP load letter, DOS days, WP 5.1, I pulled the paper tray out and held out the two sides. You're out of paper, sort of understandable in the time, DOS/WP 5.1, since the software didn't tell the users. But still kinda stupid to not check that. Incident. A few years later, I got a gig at a large bank. I was the sole IT for this department. People would say to me when I came to help, "I'm sorry, I'm just stupid," and would generally just tell them, "No, you're just ignorant of these things, that's okay, it's not your job. That's why I'm here to help/fix these things, no worries." I would then tell them of the people who didn't even bother to check the printer paper. Always made them feel better, at least I'm not that stupid. Then after a couple of months, my group got merged into a larger group in another build, and now there was a ticket system, YAY, as well as other techs to help. But now I had 3 buildings to cover. Just as I was heading to another building, a person came up to me absolutely frantic. "I can't print, I need this now." I informed them that they have to put in a ticket, it's not just me now. Cue more yelling and freaking out. So, sadly, I gave in. 'Cause I knew it was going to be this easy. Remember, we had just moved. I walk into the room, reach down and pick up the power cord that wasn't plugged in and said, "Remember those stories of stupid people, now you're one of them," and dropped the plug on the floor and walked out. A few months later, I moved into a dev position, and have only occasionally done support, to be a team player. Always a mistake. Those of you in support, you have my utter sympathy at the job. Best of luck. Sorry, your computer is not compatible with your desk. I was pimped out to Super Megacorp, supporting a manufacturing complex, one big enough that they had rail tracks passing through the building so they could load product directly into the freight cars, rain, shine or now. I got a call from the engineering annex, about a mile down the road from the main campus, about a computer that was repeatedly crashing, throwing errors and generally being temperamental. I get there and reproduce the error. Pull the computer off the engineer's desk and onto a convenient work surface, open it up, everything works fine, so no pinched cables. Put it back on the desk and the problems return. Moved it to the adjacent desk thinking it might be something wrong with the outlet, works fine. Before moving it back, I ran power into the outlet closest to the engineer with the problem, worked fine, so not the outlet. After some more fiddling, I started to pay attention to the desk itself, a nice top-of-the-line stainless steel surface that might have been a drafting table at some point. An idea flashed into my head. I took my multimeter and checked 3V between the computer and the desk surface. Problem found. I was in a building filled with mechanical and electrical engineers who knew exactly what to do and had the parts to do it. They grounded the desk to something. Don't tell skilled trades, they'd be pissed if the electrician was cut out of a chance to make overtime, and everybody lived happily ever after. Why our tech support guy wasn't allowed to talk to customers anymore. The year was long ago. It was my first IT job, and I was working at a small national chain of computer stores. I was the assembler. Every day I would build 8 custom PCs from scratch, load them, and set them to burn. I had a good chuckle at the people who would be conned into buying the premium line, which meant that for a few $100s more your case had a strip of gold plastic trim on it. Other than that, same components right down to the motherboard. Bill, or whatever his name was, that's good enough for the story, was the repair guy. People would bring their PCs in for service, repairs, cleaning some of the thickest coats of nicotine imaginable, removing the occasional dead mouse from the case, and yes, fixing broken cup holders, which really did happen. He was good at what he did, but was kind of short of patience. One day a customer brought in his PC complaining that his CD was stuck in the computer and he couldn't get it out. Should be an easy fix. Bill took the computer to the bench where he promptly discovered that the customer had embarked on a fascination journey of discover, upon which he learned that a CD is slightly larger than a 5.5 floppy bay because the two have absolutely nothing to do with each other. However, he had been determined and used a rubber mallet to get his very first CD ever to fit in the slot, which was tight because it was new and not broken in yet. Bill was not particularly diplomatic in conveying his opinion of the customer's intelligence to said customer. After that, there was a new rule: if there was ever a customer who had done anything even slightly stupid, Bill was no longer allowed to speak with the customer, but was to call me over the counter to deal with the situation.